the wealth the person has. Now, how are we going to do it in our case members in the house? We are going to use the election commission, who will carry out no more elections as usual in Uganda members in the house. But what we are going to do after the elections have been carried out, we are actually now going to actually make the number of votes a wealthy individual has inversely proportional to the wealth the person has members now. Whereby we are first going to carry out assessment members in the house through vetting, whereby we are going to actually acknowledge the capacity of the wealth someone has, and that's how actually we are going to make the number of votes they have inversely proportional to their wealth members in the house. Now, what do we acknowledge? What does the team affirmative aim at this case? We aim at equity members in the house, where we acknowledge that the majority of the politicians, the most influential positions, and the wealth were leaving the poor out members, where we acknowledge that the poor ones members in the house are not fully represented members in the house. Now, what is the impact of this thing? We look at the country like Kenya also, who has 82% of the politicians, the top most one, who are actually the wealthy people members in the house. And whereby in this country, in their decision making, it is always influenced by the wealthy people members in the house, actually ignoring most of the needs that the poor ones want in the country members now. Where does it manifest itself? We look at the taxation that was increased in Kenya members in the house. It did not actually cover the poor members in the house. They did right and death of the poor. And that's what we are driving our team affirmative in this case. That actually we do not want it to happen in this Uganda. And that's why we feel like when actually we make the number of voters someone has, the wealthy person has in the country, inversely proportional to that, actually the wealth you have, it will give an opportunity for the poor one who do not have actually the financial muscle to also do the manipulation of the voters members. Now, that tonight's resolution, we are going to achieve equity members. Now, whereby we see in Uganda where the poor people are also represented members. Now, of course, the commercialization, we do not allow them, do not give them a space in politics members now, whereby we see they are not well represented members in the house. Now, we also look at the minority rights members in the house. These are a group of people in the country whereby the commercialization do not allow them actually to stay in politics. Most of them are skilled, most of them have the capacity, but since I do not have the money to actually bribe the people in the country, I am left out with all my abilities, with all my skills members in the house, for which we do not bribe. The team that should come and engage us members in the house, because the only solution to tonight's resolution is a team that's actually achieve equity, whereby we are going to see actually the number of poor love. welfare at the end of the day is actually not going to be fair at the end of the day. So we actually understand that, like, from their case, they think that at the end of the day they're actually trying to look at the poor people being represented. But we look at the state's share, whereby, like, it's literally, even in current status quo, as we look at, like, Uganda as a country, we're looking at these people still being highly represented. Take this share. Out of the 10 people, like, but 10 people actually, like, taking, like, a scale of 100% of people who actually vote in the country, taking Uganda having most people who are actually under the poverty line, who are characterized as poor in business. Out of all the 100 people who actually vote, like 80% are actually poor at the end of the day. So, like, there's full representation of you at the end of the day. By the time you make that decision, the person you have put up there is actually going to be representing you at the end of the day, like, fully, like, actually going to be fully represented at the end of the day. So they are saying that these poor people are actually prone to bribery and everything. But at the end of the day, when they talk about bribery and everything, so like, please first, like, you're looking at a situation whereby they talk about bribery at the end of the day and everything, but they actually do not present to us like a solution or a certain kind of policy that is actually going to maybe tackle the problem that they are having at the end of the day. We are saying that, you know what, their policy is actually having in a lot of holes, whereby they say that they are coming as the Uganda Electoral Commission, and they say that when they actually look at this individual, after the voting is done at the end of the day, they're going to look at if whether you're rich or poor, and they count, they base your votes based on that. So let people understand where that concept of democracy comes in at the end of the day. They talk about representation, like what you have talked about at the end of the day. So you're saying that these wealthy people are actually influential in society. You're saying that these poor people at the end of the day are vulnerable. So, like, even if you put in such, even if, like, you're talking about such as this, whereby you want to make actually a candidate, maybe at the end of the day to be actually a poor person at the end of the day, or like they're supposed to be poor people who actually representing poor people. You're looking at these people not having, like, enough ideologies on their political issues, and you're looking at, like, a wealthy person at the end of the day being an influential sort of person, whereby they actually know where to get. So, like, even if, and let's become like an even if steps, whereby these people maybe actually make it at the end of the day to actually be there because they want the poor people to be. Like, what effectiveness are they going to have at the end of the day? Because when this person comes into maybe, let's say, parliament, at the end of the day they're actually going to have some kind of, like, getting into and becoming rich at the end of the day, and they're going to be biased at the end of the day, like, because all the rich people, they're actually, like, these rich people actually at the end of the day, like, their policies can actually bias at the end of the day, because I do have influence, like, you are not educated about these things really. So when you come, like, and easily biased, why is the effectivity they are talking about? Like, check, we're looking at a situation whereby they're supposed to prove to us that they are actually model, and the end of the day is going to cater for the poor people and not just let them actually die out at the end of the day. So we're looking at the end of the day, instead of, like, the problem they're talking about, maybe the poor people and everything, there actually can be better solutions that they want to talk about, but we do not believe that actually straining democracy and spreading at the end of the day SDG 10, which talks about reducing inequality, actually solves the states. We have to look at the situation that most of the countries, now let's take the status what they have given, like Uganda, is having a developing kind of democracy, whereby these people feel they are not represented because of, like, the kind of democracy we are having. Like, okay, like, these poor people feel like they're not represented because of, like, the loopholes in the democracy, like the bribery that they're actually putting in. But then at the end of the day, if you think that actually putting these poor people and actually getting these people to actually be maybe more represented and actually straighten the democracy, what are you feeling at the end of the day? Like, we do not see the kind of democracy that comes into play at the end of the day. Why is it important for us to actually have this at the end of the day? These poor people are actually going to be actually, they're not actually going to feel like they're actually welcome in the country. And at the end of the day, these rich people are actually going to feel like they're really useless. And they're looking at the cost efficiency to it. We're looking at, like, the outcomes at the end of the day of this year. We're looking at a country whereby we're not seeing any effectiveness, like any democracy. They base their states on Uganda. And they're saying, like, we're looking at Uganda being a very democratic country. We're going to see a lot of loopholes coming up in the system, and we do not believe that it's actually going to solve the big problem that they bring at the end of the day. They actually come in and they keep talking about, this I beg to submit. Thank you very much. The government area. We realize first thing that Uganda is actually a commercialized policy members in the house, and that whereby you see all the people for over 10 years are right now being implemented by the same people whereby they are only doing that commercialized in the house, and that is whereby people take a given one to come and say that we actually need to make the number of votes that need to have in fact proportionate to their work members in the house, and that this is why we see these people are actually the rich people living then actually people in the other regions are being represented. The poor who do not have the money that the rich have and use it to actually manipulate this poor. Actually going to bring more effectiveness into the continent of the house than that. We also see that we are going to achieve actually equity for the poor who were represented over the years. And that is why Kima Family actually tells you that actually introduce this policy. So that is the equity for all members of the house. When the team negative have actually neglected members of the house and that we are seeing the poor who are actually in the different regions who fall. And then now these other potential leaders who are having it in adequate, they don't have the capacity like the funding value are actually left behind, and these are the very people who help the poor members in the house and that is where we realize that our policy would work better. So we need the team negative to come and give us justification as to why they feel our policy would not work, and then bring their policy where they know it will work better and actually bring it between members in the house and that. We are not just saying that we are going to advocate for minority rights members in the house and then full representation, decision making of the minority, which is actually being denied right currently. And I have like these people come and saying that they are already being represented. We do not see the effectiveness, and that is why we bring about this policy members in the house and that. I have like the high inflation. There's not mean that once you have money, you high inflation. Somebody who does not have money has the capability. We take leaders to do good because we see the meritocracy, which is actually being denied. People are being denied their rights to actually go and stand for themselves because the rich are actually dominating all this by manipulating, using the cash, the money that they have, neglecting the rights of the other minorities, the individuals who have less money to actually stand for themselves and also break. Thank you.
This house will make the number of votes an individual has inversely proportional to their will. Now, what Team Affirmative has to assure us is that the policy they present today then solves the problem of the status quo. Now, going ahead to the problem, we think the problem actually that is for both kinds of houses is that there is influence of rich people's wealth in the voting process. Yes, we acknowledge that kind of problem, but what we do not agree to is the policy that they intend to vote for. They talk about things like inverse proportional vote, but they do not clearly explain how this is then going to solve the problem in status quo. We think at the end of the day when they call us for out for not having kind of alternative, we think that we come and tell you that you know what, we have actually a current system that is running that actually works on democracy. We then think that the system has some kind of inefficiencies and things that are happening that are not right, that we think if so, then would actually prove to be a better thing. Notice, one, in our kind of world, we shall be fronting for both the poor and both the rich, because we think at the end of the day there is a principle of equality that needs to be held and upheld to actually attain this kind of able leadership. We think at the end of the day the result that they give us, that rich people then cannot actually participate in this kind of thing. We think then will not hold water. They tell us that the rich are then dominating this kind of leadership position, but notice one thing, that at the end of the day, the question is not on the candidates, the question is on voters. It means that when a poor person casts one vote, their vote is going to weigh 1.5. When a rich person casts one vote, their vote is going to weigh that, notice, they give us their parameters, Uganda. In Uganda, there are more poor people than rich people. Then this itself then justifies to the fact that the poor people already have capability then to go to they wanted in power and a capable leader. If at all they were actually serious and then voted for the capable leader, they would then have change. One, we think at the end of the day we characterize to you what a poor person is and how vulnerable they are. We think then actually making their vote way heavier. We then think at the end of the day is making the problem worse. Because one thing is that corruption then, when it comes in, we think that then the impact would be way more than what is presented from our side of the house. Now that aside, I'll go straight into engagement. They come and talk about things like equity. We don't think equity does not play from the side of the house, because then at the end of the day when the rich people are then lesser than the poor people, we then think they do not achieve equity from their side of the house. They talk about a policy where they are going to make people. We think this policy is then actually in place, but they don't explain to us the policy they brought from their side of the house. They tell us that, you know what, we want poor people to also get power. We think that, listen, in the poor people's society, we think there is actually an inferiority complex that exists. At the end of the day, we're going to realize that even when a poor candidate stands and they are not capable, these people are then going to vote for this person just for the justification that then they also need representation. We think at the end of the day, what they then achieve from their side of the house is an ineffective solution to a problem that then stands in tonight's debate. One, we think actually poor people then should also be considered because they also have exposure. We think at the end of the day, the matters at which these rich people are then exposed are then actually then important matters that need consideration, and that is why their vote should not weigh less. We think at the end of the day that they also make decisions from an informed point of view, and that is why then they should also be considered at an equal stance. Panel, notice for effective leadership, equality needs to be actually, we need to strike a balance between the poor person and the rich person. Where there is no balance, we then think even what they present from their side of the house, then we actually still have diverse effect. Now, what happens when we implement what they present from their side of the house? We are going to see that there is going to be coerced choice. Notice that when a poor person can then easily still be bribed and then their vote then weighs more, we then think actually what is going to happen from their side of the house is actually there is going to be more coercion of actually the choice that is then made at the end of the day. We think there is going to be increase in the impact of voter manipulation, because then it is easier to manipulate these people because of their kind of capability and because of their kind of inferiority. We think at the end of the day there is going to be conflict. Then what do we solve at the end of their house if there are conflicts? We then think we achieve nothing from what they present. We think that this actually reduces investment and affects the economic status of the country because it motivates private rich investors. Notice, being rich is not a crime. Being rich is not a crime, and being poor then is also not a crime. We think at the end of the day we do gain actually a stable kind of political economy. We then think that these people then should actually strike a balance between being rich and being poor. We do not think that actually one person should be upheld over the other to actually do this. Now, what we need to get from their side of how they should provide for us justification as to why the policy then they present actually will prove this kind of effectiveness, which we do not get. We think at the end of the day, panel, that actually equality and democracy then runs more from our side of the house than how they claim that it runs from their side of the house. We think that what they present to us is just mere assertion that, you know what, rich people are not being presented. We think actually even the leaders in power today that they prove are not effective and they claim are not effective, we then think they were voted by these same poor people. Then what kind of actually then guarantee do we have that when we add these poor people, then actually the kind of authority, then they will actually prove effective? Yet actually 50 years down the road from independence, we then think they have not actually been able to actually get this kind of thing. We then think, panel, that the system today then is actually okay. Look at countries like Italy that operated this kind of system and how they ended up in actually political crisis. We think that we then do not want this kind of thing then to happen in Uganda. We think that the systems today are okay, but what do we need to fix? We say, panel, at the end of the day, the problem is actually the rich people's influence. What is the solution to this? People shouldn't use personal wealth in the voting process like media campaign, and this is enough. The moment then actually someone does not use their personal wealth, notice that government gives money to every member of parliament to actually then campaign. This gives people actually level ground and it was stands to stand on. We then think it is not justified for actually a poor person to then actually be upheld over a rich person. We think in a solution where we provide it up, then everyone is not going to use their personal wealth in this kind of campaign, and actually your ideology is what will actually then make you win. We then think the outside of the house then does not hold any more water than ours. We think, panel, at the end of the day is that government should ensure equal platform for representation. At a point in time where government gives everyone actually equal platform for representation, we then think actually a person tonight's debate start running right through. Now, upon the house that what we see in tonight's debate, where are the definition challenge that through? Our negative negative comes to affect us that actually the poor person in tonight's resolution is actually a person who lacks a lot of things, of which we agree with in our side that lacks financial mastery in this case. But they go ahead also fronting for us that actually a poor person in that case is a person who lacks literacy and is a person who lacks leadership skill as made mentioned earlier by the first speaker. Now, by the house that we esteem affirmative, rather, we are saying that in as much as we agree that yes, a poor person lacks a lot of things, like for example in terms of financial matter, but we don't agree in underplaying the lack of literacy and lack of leadership skills, because we believe that for you to become a leader, it is not taught in anywhere. It is not taught anywhere or in any school, but rather being a leader is inborn, and I believe that you can become a leader even without education. What we are all aiming at in tonight's resolution is equality. Now, for the house that let us see in that world where they pay for us that actually they do not want us to actually match the number of votes to number of votes that a person has. Now, in that world where we are seeing this commercialization of politics in Uganda, where about 95% are the ones which are actually dominating the seats in the parliament and other big influential offices in the country. We believe that even these people, if we are to still give them the right, if we are to still balance the elections like for them they want and they fronted in that case, that actually we should give equal opportunity for both the rich and the poor. We still see that however much the people might vote for the poor, these rich people can still go on and ballot stuff. These same rich people can still go on and write, because we believe that commercialization of politics starts right before elections and also during elections. So I believe right from the start that actually these people are still going to bribe and actually carry out these acts of corruption, which limits the people from the poor people from actually accessing spaces in political seats in Uganda. Now, part of the house that they also come here telling us that we are not actually going to achieve the principle of democracy in our case. But take a look at what democracy means. Actually, democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But what do you see from that case by the house like that? What do you see from that case where politics is actually commercialized? In this case, we see that democracy in that case actually becomes government of a person by a person and for the person. What we realize that actually, that if we are to give space where they are, if we are to match the number of votes, the number of votes, where there's no one who's going to carry out ballot stuffing and bribery and so on and so forth, we are actually providing equity in the people having equal, equal spacing and having political seats in the country, which means equality still weighs back in a side and doesn't work still with the world. Even still the principle of democracy, where we see there's still high commercialization of politics in this case, even that democracy, because they are actually advocating for government of a person by a person and for the person, still doesn't stand in that case by the house and that. Now, in that same world, so they come here, painting for us the world of a country like Uganda, which is dominated by the poor. In as much as we acknowledge that yes, the country like Uganda is dominated by the poor, but are they given chances to have seats in political seats in the country? This is where we see that the rich use their financial muscle actually to deprive these poor people from getting seats. That is inequality already in that case by the house at large. This will come here telling us that they want to advocate for poor, but we still elaborate more on the case of commercialization of politics, which is causing inequality for these poor people. But we believe if we do this actually by limiting the number of votes, the number of wealth a person has, we are going to actually give the opportunity for also these poor people to actually be represented in the parliament. We are still fighting from their world telling us that actually there is difference in broadcast. But as much as I know the best knowledge of my understanding, none of my speakers can be mentioning that in our case actually 1.5 is to be considered as a vote by one person and one as a rich. But rather we say we as an electoral commission we are going to carry out normal voting, but then later on the vote actually proportionalize what you want rather to create equality even for the poor people to have seats in the politics of Uganda. Now what happens like that? Also from their world still, they can be affecting for us issue of conflicts in the country. But where do we see that conflict really originates from? Conflicts are as a result of injustices that happen during electoral take a look at what the government has been trying doing. The government has been trying putting the IPG in the electoral commission, which has failed still. The government still sends the authority general to actually resolve this issue, which has still failed, and so we still see the anti-corruption, which trying to combat corruption still in the electoral commission, but still failed. Which is why we believe that in our case it stands more for equality, since we are actually advocating for the people who were actually left behind in tonight's resolution panel members' house like that. Because they're telling us that actually still in that case, and actually these poor people can actually be biased, if they can begin to be influenced in the house like that. We have to attend to that actually. And you can be educated or uneducated, you have the capacity to differentiate between what is wrong and right. So that case of actually poor people being biased, still doesn't stand in tonight's resolution. Now when the house like that, they tell us that how are we going to reduce inequalities, of which I know to the best of my understanding, I answered that for the past 10 years we're going to see 95% of the politicians and of the people holding influential posts in the country are actually the rich, which is already inequality in their case. And that is why we believe our policy works best, because we are going to be uplifting the people who were left behind for the past 10 years, which means that we actually be advocating even for these poor people to actually have a space in politics of the country with us out like that. Now when the house like that, take a look at the comparative analysis of what they bring and what we bring in this case. Because they are telling us that actually they do not want a country where poor people live because they think these people are illiterate, these people lack knowledge, and also they believe that they want to provide equal opportunity for both. But what do we see in tonight's resolution? Where they see that for the past 10 years they have been neglecting these poor people, not directly rather, but indirectly, because you see, in an election process, even though the person who is poor wins in an election, but we still see that commercialization of politics that happens before and during the election can still affect this poor people, of which they fail to understand in tonight's resolution. And they really want to stand tonight's resolution, let them come and give us a better way of actually combating this commercialization of politics in the country, and how they're going to actually improve on the minority rights of the people who were left behind all this world. When the house like that, I beg to rest. Leave the truth.
I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. From the very beginning of tonight's debate, we had one very big clash, and that was a definition. We have had two separate debates until my speech. But the one thing you have to understand, team affirmative characterizes this motion in a manner whereby if a poor person and a rich person want to stand for candidacy, a poor person automatically wins because they will have more votes. Team negative characterizes this motion in a manner whereby if we are voting as individuals, I mean like natives for any particular election, a poor person's vote is going to hold more water than a rich person's vote. And one, we have to understand that team negative wins on this clash because that is actually unrealistic. What do I mean? Are we still voting if a poor person automatically wins? Are we still having an election? Is that still democracy? Is that still taking place in the next? We do not get it. But from our definition and characterization of this debate, they do not engage on it, and they actually pretend like they do not hear it again. Well, one thing you have to understand is that even if they run that kind of policy, what do we get? We get this. We get a fact that poor people are automatically going to win every single competition, every single election. Are we still voting? Are rich people still participating? Is there active participation there? It is just automatic poverty. Should we still put our votes inside? If it means that if I'm rich, I automatically lose, I still voting. Is that active participation? Is that democracy? No. Then, even if in their instance, we still see and there is no guarantee that this poor person is actually going to come back and do everything they are saying. There is no guarantee that if I was one, I was actually put into power. Even if they are saying this actually their characterization, we must debate that way. Even if that is the case, there is no guarantee that is a person in status quo that characterize poor people and individuals who have had, problems in status quo. How do we have that guarantee and mandate that this one person is not going to carry themselves and actually lead an entire country to success? We do not see it and they do not justify it. Then we still have that thing that even when this is in existence, we do not see that guarantee because of political influence. And what you have to understand, rich people have influence on politics because they actually did things like donations, they actually help these people to campaign and so on. Now, even if this poor person thinks that actually wins that debate because wins the election because it's automatic, you still see political influence that comes in and you're still not represented. That's all the problem is as well. Then, they also bring in a scenario that, it is still going to be sustainable, that we do not see it in the end of the day. Then, let me give you an impact on their side if I actually go back to the actual debate. Their impact is, if a poor person is automatically taking part, that means all individuals who are poor would actually want to take part. What do we understand from individuals who are poor? Many of them are illiterate. That means the most illiterate person will take part in the debate, and that means we're not having a sustainable leadership. At the end of the day, what we have to understand, if very many poor people are then running, rich people are no longer going to run for the campaign, number of participation against the best people. Then, we still have to understand that when I'm in power, I still have political influence on these rich players. So it's not guaranteed that I'm going to actually get to, representation. Then, we also have limited exposure. But when they bring this, we still see conflict for rich people because they will not represent it. Now, let's actually go to the actual debate. The major clash points are equity. One thing they say is that rich people, poor people are not being represented in the school, and they're telling them that I will still actually dignity and fairness if you are looking at people who are actually supposed to vote. They will not vote. They tell us democracy is for the people. Do I stop being a person because I'm rich? It makes no sense. We tell them that democracy is fairness, which is when they fair if I actually participate, and they do not see the whole day. They bring in effectiveness and tell us yes, effectiveness is not maybe, but status quo has it. Majority of individuals in status quo are poor. If you to make their vote, have no impact, it does not change anything because the leadership has still remained. Let us go from a comparative. They say we do not bring for them a solution, but if you look at the solution here, is we are solving the problems that actually lead to this deficiency. We are solving that bringing the financial, the putting money into job money into that thing. We are solving all those entire problems that come with both bringing and actually up. They do not change the root cause of the problem. They do not change the root cause. It has to be the root cause. The root cause is that I am still rich. The root cause is that we live this thing. We feel there is a problem, so that's called remove. But the solution, no. But what you have to understand in tonight's debate is Team Negative wins this debate of this. Team Negative wins the debate because we actually show you the actual definition and I show you why we win on it. We win this debate because we show you democracy and equity. Then, my second speaker comes and emphasizes the fact that it solves the problem in status quo. I was saying now what solves the problem in status quo. She comes and tells us that we want to solve a systematic problem. She tells us, if we are there saying we're making the problem in status quo, if you are saying ineffectiveness, we are going to look at a scenario of more effectiveness. If they are saying a bad thing in status quo, we're looking at a scenario of the worst thing in status quo. But we look at political crisis. We look at the political crisis that took place in countries when they tried to implement this policy. It took place, they did not engage. They did not engage on objectivity. That is the the whole beginning of this debate, and automatically, the team that wins this debate is a team that looks like team negative. Pardon, they come and tell us that, you know what, being rich, the whole defense of the debate, which is being rich is the crime. When they talk about proportionality, then at the end of it, if it is proportional, we're not actually working out the actual source for it. It's going to still be proportional because we are actually measuring and making metrics. Pardon, that is not solving the problem because that means that just then encourages me to continue finding. That just then encourages me to put in more effort to win. And it's not solving the problem in status quo. But we look at a scenario, we look at the comparative analysis. Are they achieving change in their side? No. Why? We are told political instability. We are told that exposure. We are told that of impact. They are not solving the problem in status quo. Are we solving the problem in status quo? Yes. We say we give vote for change. In this debate, we'll ask ourselves three questions. If this policy is put in place, do we get the benefit? No. In the end of that day, we'll look at a scenario of a team that has to win this debate because it has shown you the best characterization of the motion and has understood it. We have to look at a team that solves the problem in status quo. And let's go to stakeholder analysis. We look at the nationals. How the national is going to be be affected. If it's the poor people who have the bigger impact of our waste, it's going to discourage creation of taking part. It is going to bring in conflicts in status quo. Government is going to show ineffectiveness, and in the end, you're not having a sustainable solution. Why then the two solve that? The nitty-gritties in this particular democracy and so a sustainability. And we are not against the poor people. We feel like they should be represented, but their solution to representation is the wrong solution. We are not against them. We feel they should really be represented. But we also want for you an analysis. But for attempt to win this debate, they must justify why their side actually brings a solution. We win on practicability, efficiency, and scope.
What we have to understand is one thing, is that we are not against the poor person and this kind of representation, but we think that the solution then they provide from the side of the house then does not provide for this kind of policy to stand and then hold water. Look, we present to you that democracy actually that is happening currently has an issue, and we tell you how to solve it. We tell you at the end of the day that people then should be given an equal platform, that no one should use their personal wealth in these kinds of elections. We then think the ground will be leveled so that people can choose according to capability. However, they come and tell us that, you know what, there is commercialization of politics, and then people actually go out to campaign and these kinds of things. We did not say that does not happen in current status quo. That is why we want to change these kinds of things. We want to make sure that then at the end of the day, the only money you get to campaign with is the money that government gives every candidate, which is the same amount of money we then all use. However, they come and tell us at the end of the day that, you know what, in a country like Uganda, where poor people are already more than rich people, and then we want to make their vote then more important than the rich people, then we should just say all poor people become leaders. We should then not have the voting process. Then why is then the voting important? Why is the election even still there? If I know that one, poor people are already more than me, and poor people like voting for poor people, then at the end of that day, you realize that then what is your intent of then standing in an election where you don't actually stand a chance? What we front for is one thing. If a poor person casts a vote and it is counted as one, even when a rich person casts a vote, it should also be counted as one. That is fairness. That is the only way we are actually going to achieve the goal they claim they want to achieve from the side of the house. Why I think it is actually important and why the solution is the solution we provide from our side of the house is that one, it actually provides for democracy. It involves everyone, as everyone will be weighing the same at the end of the day. We think it strikes a balance between the poor person and the rich person. So at the end of the day, what we get is that people then have an equal stance and actually participation in politics, and people actually and then represent. We think at the end of the day, if poor people then want to make sure that their kind of voice is heard and what they actually vote for, we think they should just make the right choices. Then this will actually then make sure that they get the kind of representation they need. However, what they do from the side of the house is that they tell us, we did not say that it is going to be 1.5 or what, so then we don't have them want to even debate at the end of the day, because they do not tell us how their policy then applies in the world where they front for it. So panel, we think at the end of the day, the team that wins tonight's debate is the team that shows you what the policy they present is, how it is going to work, and why. But we think that the solution they provide then continues to actually cause a lot of bribery and corruption, because then a rich person who is corrupt in mind would then know what these people's vote is actually then important and more important than the rich people's vote, so I should then bribe them. We think the solution they provide from their side of the house causes more problems and does not solve the problem in status quo. For a better Uganda, for a better leadership, we should all vote for side leadership. I rest my case.
who are going to take the rich. Members of the house that here this one the thing that come and goes less in 90 days. They come and tell us that actually they are not neglecting the rich. They are not neglecting the poor. But actually the thing about them to say that we are actually neglecting the rich, which is going to bring in more problems to the house and that. We don't acknowledge that the poor and the rich are all equal. But at the point whereby the poor are being neglected is whereby we see how policy can be members of the house and that. We don't say that we are going to leave the rich. We don't acknowledge the rich are also beneficial to the country. But now, the point as to where our policy work is whereby we see the thing negative, having to actually leave the poor behind. These are the poor people who actually have the capacity and they do know they have financial by the members of the house and that. They don't have the capacity to go and break all the people, the way the rich can break members of the house and that. They give me an answer question of are we still going to leave the poor person with of the house and that? You're actually trying to give actually equity members of the house and that. Whereby we are seeing somebody who has money, has the highest capacity of going to manipulate people before even the relations of the house and that. Whereby we understand that there's going to be one something members of the house and that. And at the end of the day, when there's ballot something, I remember the poor vote for the person they want. When there's ballot something, it's that the poor person has a very minimum point of winning the vote members of the house and that. But sometimes you say, people be using money, even by government. Yeah, but you see that does not stand at this point members of the house and that. Yeah, but ballot something happened behind the door members of the house. Yeah, but nobody is actually coming to see. Yeah, but we realize that these people are going to use this money, not in the eyes of all the individuals. That is why we feel. I remember they come and say the people are going to use only the money that government gives. The person who is having a lot of money will go the extra mile so that they win this election and that. And you see that, I remember they say the poor are the very people who vote for these people. Why? Because the actual, they want the money and they know the people are not going to give it to them. Because at the end of the day, they vote because they know maybe they are going to actually be able to go. And at the end of the day, why this policy works is because they are actually not being able to go. And that is whereby democracy pays the negative to go in front of the house and that. Whereby we see democracy is the law, is the one, people will give a member of the house. Whereby we vote you so that you give us back. And that is something we are seeing being paid members of the house and that. And at the end of the day, we realize democracy does not stand in negative scales because of the house and that. Whereby the people are going to give you their voice, but you're going to give back to the people. Democracy is not realized because of the house and that. And that is where we see democracy actually fails to the people negative. But that's why the people of in affirmation. Whereby at the end of the day, once this policy has been put in place, we are going to see that actually the poor people and the rich people are actually being cared for at the same level, not maintaining one body and the way negative is coming to actually maintain the poor. Whereby you see our policy, we are going to give people, individuals vote according to the number of votes and people has is going to be inversely proportional to their wealth. This is because we are seeing commercialization of politics in favor of the house. Whereby people already vote over 10 years, we are seeing the very people who are having money being having the same point and the very people who are being ineffective in the government members of the house and that. And that is where we see democracy that don't stand in their case of the house and that because they are not representing the people who actually voted them with the intention of them being represented in the house and that. We also see that we are going in our measurement, we talked about totalitarian and politicracy, whereby we are seeing the very people who are actually working are not effective, and that is where the people have to face against us that these people are representing these people and providing us members in the house and that. We see that we are going to enhance the ability to members of the house. How will accountability happen tonight today? Whereby at the end of the day, once the vote and individual has is inversely proportional to their wealth, at the end of the day, whereby we realize that this person who is having a lot of money, use the money in a different manner to actually sustain or to be in that position. By using God bringing or by the ballot survey, we are going to realize that actually at the end of the day, there is going to be equity for all and advocating for the minority more efficiently than the actually give platforms for change in leaders. And at the end of the day, when a rich person has a lot of money, he see that having all the highest capacity of actually bringing these people going for ballot survey and don't give a single chance to the other
Wano wa mama wange. Wano wa mama wange.
We have done what the team
They have the best
Sacred Hearts arguing
all round.
versus the team from Center High School, Malala.
Arguing the Center High School, Malala.
The two teams come to the front.
Everyone.
Please clap for them as they come. Sacred Hearts versus Ulu and Center High School,
Malala. Center High School, Malala. Malala chile mmukono. Arumu Malala mmukono ni Malala.
And Mr. President,
Kano wakanyaza
as
no.
we announce the winners, I'd like to invite you to
Ndio mwana gwe kugambye yo mwana yogero. Oya kulembedde. Oyo mata.
She was the best speaker in this fight.
That one. She can go.
It's not mine alone. It is from all the 7 of us. Okay. So first
They
of
want
all,
to give the gift to her.
And we're around, we have an award actually. Please, Mr. President, please hand over the Best Special Needs Award to Miss Garang before we get into the final. You had been announced earlier that you were not here. Okay, so as I said before,
Ogera mu kamera ya.
the panel of judges that adjudicated the finals round of the Uganda National Student Association 2024, we had 7 judges,
Five.
and in a unanimous decision,
Jagalye.
that means that all the 7 judges had the same poll. We all agreed in our preliminary ballots, and even after our deliberation, we still agreed that the team that wins this year's championships, okay, may I please have the veterans stepping onto the stage? Veterans of Center DJ as they come on stage. Thank you. The team that wins the Uganda National Student Association Debate Grand Finale 2024, drum rolls please, is the team that argued in the opposition.
Congratulations. There is a technophone here. If you know you lost your phone, I have a technophone here with me. It's off. It has been on charge. Please come for it. At the patron of